a new factor here, which is the new dimension with Islam, is that yesterday they were perceived as Turkish, Arabs, now they are all Muslims. This is the common factor. So for example, today we have Turkish, and by the way, the Turkish people here and the Moroccan are not facing exactly the same problem. If you are serious about trying to map the realities of the populations in, for example, in the Netherlands, you will see that the problems are not exactly the same. But the common thing is they are all Muslims. So we have this perception. Now, I can understand people saying, and I got that when I was in Rotterdam, people saying, it's no longer Rotterdam, because these people are not us. They are these, outsiders with it. So there are many things to do. The first thing, which is for me very important, while I will be the first to stand up against any kind of political instrumentalization of this attitude by populist party, get builders and others, I will respect what is happening on the grassroots. I will respect the people. I will listen to this when they say, I'm no longer at home. And then there is an educational process here where you have to open channels at the local level. And I can tell you something, it's going much better than what is said at the national level. Because in some areas, it's working. Still, lots of segregation, and but the point is that, yes, it's changing. And then we have to look at the positive, contribution of this population, not only in meal and the kebab and the national football team, but in all the other dimensions, we have to speak about arts, creativity, and all this. So we have to nurture better communication. I can understand the first resistance, but I don't want this to turn into racism. And this is where we have to work. But once again, it's a two-way process. And this is why I'm saying to Muslims, don't segregate yourself, don't isolate yourself, reach out, speak, be visible in a constructive way, show that you are not only integrated, but you are contributing to the future of this society. And the last point that should be said also and raised is that there is no survival for the Netherlands without immigrants. All the European figures are showing that Europe will not survive economically without more people coming from outside. It's difficult, but this is the truth.
Can I add something? I think we're perhaps discussing a slightly secondary problem here, because the problem of foreign habits, or people wearing headscarves, or starting halal butchers, or even not wanting their daughters to go to mixed swimming classes. These are problems that I think they're very minor problems. I don't think halal butchers are even a minor problem at all. But nobody's forcing the majority to adopt these same customs, after all. So I don't think that's the problem. I think the great elephant in this room is violence. And I think there is a problem. We can talk about dialogue and nurturing understanding and so on, and we're all for it. But I think we do have a serious problem where, let's take Geert Wilders. I can't stand the guy. I'd never vote for him. I think he's a bigot. But he's the one whose life is being threatened. By the way, not necessarily just by Muslims. It would be very interesting to know from the intelligence service who's actually threatening him, because it could just as well be crazy animal rights people or whoever. It's not given that they're all Muslims who are threatening him. But among the threats are certainly Muslims. It's a problem that Yale University Press will publish a book about the Danish cartoons, but refuses to publish the photographs about which the book, which is the subject of the book, and as the publishers themselves say, because they are afraid of provoking violence. Now, this is not a fantasy. We've seen the potential violence, and I think we cannot discuss these problems without really seriously addressing that issue, because that does seriously challenge the freedom of expression, not headscarves or minarets. So I think that's all ready for the birds.
No, but still, no. Yes,
yeah, I know people make a big thing of it, but it's...
No, they're not making a big thing. It's a referendum. 60% of the the Frisk population supported it. It's an issue.
It's an issue, but it's a ridiculous issue.
Okay,
whereas violence is
okay, the point is that I agree with this, that we have to be very clear on violence, and there is no discussion about it. And we all know that it's a tiny minority, and they are very much undermining what is done on a great, more important scale. Now, we also have to say, because this is something which is important, and this is especially in this country, when I was asked by the government what should we do just before the movie, on fitna and all that, and look at the way the Dutch Muslims reacted on this. Just he had to say thank you, because they were very wise and calm. By the way, it's exactly the same.
No, he didn't have to say thank you. That was the worst response from his point of view.
Yes, but he had to. But he had to say.
He wanted them to react violently,
yes,
because
but
then
he had
vindicated.
exactly. But he had to say, okay, thank you, sorry, sorry to say thank you, but thank you anyway. But the main point is not this one, is that even with the cartoon, when I was in October, when it started with the cartoon issue, the Danish Muslims were very calm. This was instrumentalized by foreign countries to nurture this sense of clash and ambassadors even. So I would say, yes, that's true, but at the end of the day, it's deeper. I would say violence, you're right. But there are two other things. Is really the feeling we are no longer at home. This is a reality, that we have people saying, I'm no longer at home. They are even leaving the inner cities, going outside because they don't feel that in the city they are at home. And the second thing which is important is the confusion by many politicians between the religious factor and the socio-economic problems. That when you have people who are dealing with violence, oh, Muslim, no, Moroccan, not socially integrated, we need social policies, we don't need to speak about religion. And this is one of the main factors, which is also important.
Other questions? There are more.
I would like to ask to Mr. Tariq Ramadan. I come from Indonesia, which is the population of the country is 90% Muslims. And when you talk about breaking from within, I would like to ask how to do that. I completely agree with your idea, but how to do that when the context of society is there is a tendency by Islamic leaders to divide between faith and knowledge. For example, if somebody questioning the Quran critically, and they will say, this is written by God, how could you question the Quran? It means that you don't believe, you don't have faith in God. That's the first question. And the second one, when there is an imbalance or relation between the Islamic leaders and their students, because the students have a tendency just to accept what the Islamic leaders teach to them. And the third is when there is a fear to be more critical to the teaching of Quran. Because, for example, we have a journalist once, he made a survey about who is the most famous figure in Indonesia, and then Muhammad became not the first one, become 5 or something. And people very angry, and then finally he was put in prison because of that. So how to do that more visible in this kind of difficult situation?
Yes, I think that what is important is that what we can see in Indonesia, in many other Muslim majority countries, is that the internal debate is quite difficult for many reasons. The first one is it's a power struggle, and religious people have some power, they don't want to share, and they don't want to be challenged on that. The second thing which is important is the relationship with the West. If you criticize from within, you are perceived as playing the game of the other, the West. So this is also something which is, this has an impact on the psychology of the whole debate. If you are critical from within, it means that you should be an ally from people from outside. And you cannot just deny this fact. And this is why I would say it's quite important. This is why I don't, I really don't want us in the West to be perceived as only having a debate among ourselves, creating a European Islam which has nothing to do with the Islam in Muslim majority countries. It's all connected. At the end of the day, it's all connected. So this is why I am advocating a European Muslim by saying there is one Islam as to the principle.